2 years ago, I had never run an ultramarathon. In 2024, I ran my first 100-mile race. And in this video, I'm going to tell you how I did it. But more importantly, I'm going to tell you how you can do it too. 2 years ago, my only bucket list was just to run a marathon. But then I got addicted. So now distance is my goal. My only goal is how far I can go. When I was training for my first marathon, I couldn't even run 16 miles without hitting the wall. But then I discovered the magic of electrolytes. I like to drink liquid IV, and what works for me may not work for you. So my suggestion is to experiment on your own. Drinking electrolytes allowed me to pass that 16-mile infamous wall, and which got me to my marathon distance. When I was training for my first marathon, I averaged about 30 miles a week, running 3 to 4 days per week. On weekdays, I would run 3 to 5 miles and one long run between 15 to 20 miles on one of the weekends, usually Saturday. I started this plan 3 months before the marathon, which was sufficient for the minimal requirements to run the marathon. My first marathon time was only 4 hours and 10 minutes. My shoes were terrible. I ran in the Saucony's Peregrine 12s. I decided on the shoes by asking the sales staff at the shoe store what would be the best shoe for me to run on pavement and trails. Because honestly, I was a little cheap. So don't be cheap. My recommendation, if you run on paved roads and trails, buy separate shoes. After my first marathon in May of 2022, I realized that I loved the whole long distance thing and decided to get into ultra running. I took a week break after the marathon, only running about 6 miles in that week. And then I started training for the 6-hour race that I signed up for end of July. I went from averaging about 30 miles a week to 40 to 50 miles a week, which was a big jump. And there were some growing pains. I remember waking up in the middle of the night because I slept with my legs bent and then I couldn't unbend them and it hurt so much. I guess the tendons got really tight while I was sleeping and it hurt so much to unbend them. So now I always sleep with my legs straight. You just never know. At the end of June, I entered a 30K trail race where I came in first in my age group and 6th overall. This was the period where I really started running on trails and figuring out the nutrition and pacing strategies, such as run-walk concepts, which was completely new to me. Learning what I could and could not eat on the go. I practiced using my hydration vest. The types of food I experimented with were dried fruit like dates and dried apricots, peanut butter, and between long runs, I sometimes drank bone broth, which is actually really satisfying during those ultra events, especially when they're in some sort of a loop or something where you could always go back to your belongings because you're not running with the bone broth in your pockets or in your vest. It's a sure way to get your mouth burnt. When I ran my first 6-hour race, my goal was to make it an official ultra running distance of 50K. So I finished with 32.6 miles, which accomplishing the 50K goal, officially making an ultra marathoner out of me. And I came in 3rd overall place. However, they gave me a 2nd place trophy because they didn't count the actual person that came into 2nd place. So kind of feel bad for him, but I didn't know at that time. But I didn't stop there. I was feeling great, so I signed up for an 11-hour race in October, and this time I didn't take a break from the race. I actually ramped up my weekly mileage from 50 miles to about 80 miles a week. When October came around, I actually ran my 2nd marathon 2 weeks prior to my 11-hour race with a finishing time of 3 hours and 36 minutes, which was an improvement of 34 minutes in 4 months. Which I think was pretty good, but I had the right shoes this time. I felt great running for the 11-hour race. I put over 46 miles and closing out the year of 2022. What I learned that year was more about what I could drink and eat. I stayed out of the aid station food because I subscribed to the mentality, don't try anything for the first time during a race. So I just ate the food that I trained with knowing that my body would efficiently process it. After the race in October, my weekly mileage dropped to about 10 to 20 a week until January of 2023, then I again started slowly ramping up to 30 to 40 miles a week until March, then to 40 to 50 miles a week, then in May to 60 miles a week. And I also entered in May a 10-hour race, completing 40.5 miles, still taking no break with putting up 67 miles the following week post-race. Then in June, I entered a local backyard ultra called Last Human Standing, where participants do about 4 miles every hour on the hour until the last person is left. I put over 54 miles that year, coming in second overall. Then in June, I went back to Gunstock Trail Fest. That's the race where I came in first in my age group in the 30K, but this time I signed up for an 80K, which is about 50 miles. Then in July, I decided to have a makeshift training camp over a weekend where a couple of my running friends and I camped right off a trail, and all we did that week was run an 8-mile loop trail. That weekend, I put over 70 miles, and for the week, I put over 100 miles, which is still the most miles I've ever put that were not racing miles for the week. We ate steaks and pancakes during the training camp, which was actually pretty freaking cool. Then in August, I signed up for my first 24-hour race where my goal was to try to do 100 miles because it was a flat 2.5-mile loop. This race was called Anchored Down. I put up most miles up to that point. I was just shy of 100 miles, where I only did 93 miles. Then my last race in 2023 was the Trail Classic, which was an 11-hour race. But in 2023, I did one more loop, more than the previous year, of 54 miles. Then again, during the winter, I reduced my weekly mileage to about 30 miles. But the 2023 winter was a little different because there was a winter challenge that I found out called the Border Patrol Challenge, where we had from the first day to the last day of winter to complete 20 trails on the border of Rhode Island and Connecticut. The trail lengths range from 2 miles all the way up to 26.5 miles. This was a competition between over 100 participants. This challenge really kept my cardio up all throughout the winter, so I was all set coming into the spring. And this challenge was from the first day of winter to the last day of winter. Then, in April of 2024, I ran Trap Rock 50, a 50K, where it was pretty hilly, and also my first encounter with a mama bear with 3 little cubs, which was terrifying. A week later, I ran the Spring Fling 600, which was a 10-hour race that I ran the previous year. Then, in May, I was invited to participate in a 6-person relay race called the Ragnar New England Road Race, which was a 200-mile race through 3 states, but it was a relay race between 6 people, so we averaged about 30 miles each. I started utilizing smaller ultra races as training runs for the longer races. I noticed that my body was able to recover faster between the smaller ultra runs. It also broke the monotony of running the same trails over and over. Then in June, I ran Last Human Standing again, the same backyard ultra that I did in 2023, but then I did it again in 2024. This time I did one more loop than the previous year, getting about 60 miles. But this time I came in like 4th rather than 2nd like the previous year. That's because this year we had a lot more participants participating in it. Then in August, I was supposed to run the Anchored Down Ultra, that 24-hour race in Rhode Island again. However, this year I was hoping to get that 100-mile infamous belt buckle as my first belt buckle, but it wasn't in the cards this year at all because 2 days before Anchored Down, my grandfather, he passed away. So I had to go home to New York for the funeral. So in 2024, my weekly mileage was slightly reduced to about 50 to 60 miles a week. But what I changed was that on weekends, I would do back-to-back long runs. So for example, my biggest mileage weekend was 28 miles on Saturday and then 23.5 miles on Sunday. I reduced the number of training days, but I also increased running on tired legs with back-to-back long runs. So an example of a training week would be 7 miles on Tuesday, 10 miles on Wednesday, 10 miles on Friday, then 40 miles on Saturday, and then 20 miles on Sunday. Just around 60 miles a week. So on a weekly basis, I will play around with mileage and training days because I get bored quickly, and mixing things up a bit keeps me more engaged in my training. So in October, I signed up for the MidState Massive 100-mile race. So because the parts of that trail were about 1 to 2 hours from my house, I would periodically go there and run the trails to learn the trail system so I don't get lost in the race. Apparently, that race is known for people to get lost because it's a point-to-point 100-mile trail race that goes from the most southern part of New Hampshire all the way down to the most southern part of Massachusetts. Finally, in October 2024, I completed my first 100-mile race in 27 and a half hours, earning my first 100-mile race belt buckle. And that's it right there. So what did I learn up to this point? I was prone to shin splints, so I started wearing compression socks, and that went away. I learned the importance of wide toe box shoes and cutting toenails, which reduced the amount of toenails I was losing. In fact, in 2024, I lost 0 toenails, unlike 2022 and 2023, where I lost quite a few. I learned that when I have knee pain, that a knee sleeve helps to stabilize your knee joint, reducing the pain and additional injury, enabling me to run and heal at the same time. I learned that nut butter works great for chafing and preventing blisters. I haven't had one blister from any of my runs since I started applying it. I learned that my nutrition plan works for me. And in 2024, I learned that my gut is pretty resilient and that it could withstand aid station food that I've never tried before. So now, looking at menus before the ultras is a joy of itself. Looking forward to the aid station food, where in the ultras, the food is pretty good. So what am I planning to experiment with this year for 2025? I signed up for 3 100-mile races. So this is a big year. So after my 100-mile race last year, my knees are still mildly affected. So I am adding workouts to strengthen the muscles around the knee for stabilization and more added cushioning. I'm adding a stair climber to my training to strengthen up my hill climbing game. Last year, I averaged 60 miles a week with back-to-back long runs on weekends. So I think that I will keep the back-to-back long runs, but I think I'm going to increase my weekly mileage to maybe 100 plus miles, but we have to see. But it looks like the elite ultra runners run hell of a lot, like over 100 miles a week. I mean, I got to work, and I know they have to work too. Some of them. Anyways, I'm going to try to hit 100 miles a week. So we'll see. Although I am a strong believer in recovery days. Maybe I'll do active recovery. So I'm looking forward to this year of 2025, where I'm going to do loads of running and experimenting. Just remember, what works for me may not work for you. We are all unique individuals. That's what makes us great. So I encourage every one of you to go out there and experiment for yourselves. Try out what I've been doing, but it may not work for you. So try it out and try other things. So if you have any tips from your experience, drop it down in the comment section. See you on the trails.
Like and subscribe.